Atlanta, Georgia. I am delighted to be speaking to Adam McIntyre from The Pinx. So
Hello.
pleased to meet you, Adam.
Yeah, it's good to meet you.
Yeah, and we've both had our issues with Zoom tonight, but we got there in the end. Fingers crossed, touch wood, and everything.
Yeah,
How
that's
have
all.
you been? How are you?
I've been pretty well. I've had a migraine on and off for about the last 10 days, but other than that, I'm feeling pretty good.
Well, that's not good about the migraine, but I'm pleased you're kind of all right at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We should start by talking about you. There's a lot of information about you out there, and you have a solo career as well as being the lead vocalist for the Pinx. So we're going to discuss both those things, and I should first of all say that your discography includes blues and pop and funk and straight up rock and roll. So a bit of
Yeah.
everything.
Right.
And I certainly noticed different influences in your solo work compared to the Pinx.
Right.
Would you say there is a difference in the style between them?
Oh, absolutely. So, I've kind of always I started off playing blues.
Yeah.
I was a teenager, and I started trying to figure out like, well, do I have to do that, or do I want to do that? And I started seeing what else I was capable of and trying to expand my abilities as a songwriter. And I really worked on my songwriting once I got to Nashville, and I was in Nashville from 1996 to 2006. I did a lot of like power pop and indie rock while I was there. And I put out some solo records as like a power pop or indie rock guy. I also had a rock band at the same time. And when I moved to Atlanta, I wanted to stop confusing people so much. I wanted to have like one outlet for all of my rock songs, and that's the Pinx. So it started off as basically a solo project with the band name. It's very much a band now.
Yeah.
It's much more collaborative. Um, and I find that it actually recharges me to do more for the Pinx when I have other outlets as well. When I can just do a record of all Prince type stuff or all funkadelic type stuff, if I can get back to my blues roots. But it can be really cleansing and really inspiring to step away from rock for just a minute and say, like, well, I mean, what if I'm not a rock guy? What if that's just one thing I do? What if I just play music? What if my passion is music more than it is one genre? I could be wrong, but I feel like limiting myself would be silly. And that a lot of people are probably capable of a lot more than they're allowing themselves to be. It can be very freeing to do a record in some style that you've never done before. And when I came back so I did the 3 solo records in 2020.
Yeah.
And immediately when I finished that last one, Black Planet, I went straight that week, started writing songs for the new Pinx record. And I spent about a year doing that and working on demos and back and forth with the band. And those 3 solo records mostly happened because I didn't have access to my band in 2020.
Yeah.
We weren't rehearsing all the time like we had been. And I could, every once in a while have one of the guys come over and play, but it wasn't the same as like hey, we're seeing each other, a few times a week, and here's something I'm working on. So without being able to collaborate with my band as frequently, I just did everything myself and churned out 3 records over the course of about 6 months.
Not bad at all. And when you did mention your sort of style and influence, I've got to say I did notice the Prince influence there. That's what really struck me when I first heard your music.
Yeah.
It's very apparent and incredible, really. And so different from what you do with the Pinx. I should let everybody know, in case they're wondering, the Pinx have been described as southern tempered psychedelic rock and roll. Okay, And you're a foursome. So you've got your current lineup is yourself, Chance McCall, Charles, is it Wiles?
Yeah,
And I'm not sure how to pronounce your drummer's name.
Casey.
Is it Casey Buttrey? Okay. So it says dueling lead guitars. So you're one of the guitarists. The lean's heavy on rock and roll. That's non-pretentious and loud. And yes, I can definitely agree to that. You know, having listened to your music, it is non-pretentious and loud. I mean, I don't know what you're like live. I've never seen you live. I imagine you're fairly loud live. Have you been able to play much recently? I mean, with the pandemic and everything, have you been able to do many shows?
We've gotten back to playing shows, and we've used the last several shows to get ready for the post release. You know, like we've been really trying to get ready in case like some of our more famous friends were like, hey, the Pinx, come on, open a tour for us. We want to be ready for that. We don't want to look like dummies on stage. We'd like to really be ready for it. So we've been road testing this stuff as much as we can, going and playing little shows around the Southeast, which is what we've always done. And as far as our style, the little bio that you read was I really fight against all sorts of descriptions like that because we're a rock and roll band.
But you know what I really liked? I like
And
this.
people are like, well, what kind of rock and roll? And I'm like, rock and roll. You know, everything that you think that means.
What Aaron Irons from Creek FM said. He says, to hear the Pinx is to worship at the altar of rock and roll. So just like you say, basically. And that's lovely for anyone to say about a rock and roll band. I mean, that's
Right.
what you want. So you're now currently in the process of waiting for you're in the waiting process for your fourth album to come out. So this is your self-titled album. It's due out on the 19th of August this year by Earache Distribution, and it's produced and mixed by Tom Tapley.
Yes.
Right, Tapley. So tell us about this album. So you've got 15 tracks on there. So it's quite a whopper of an album.
Yeah, it's a double LP.
Double LP.
Yeah, when we get the vinyl in 6 to 8 months or whatever, it's going to be 2 records in one sleeve. What I wanted to do was basically have a demo derby where Chance and I write about 25 songs, 20 to 25 songs, and then we whittle it down to the 10 or 12 best ones. Producer Tom Tapley has a Grammy sitting on his mantle. I assume that he knows what he's talking about when it comes to executive decisions on how we make the sausage in the studio, so to speak.
I've
And
not heard that expression before. Is that an expression?
how we make the sausage.
How we make the sausage in the studio? I like that.
And Chance really did not want to sacrifice the number of songs that we were thinking. He put up a fight. He stood by and had his convictions. He said these songs need to stay. Like this basically this whole batch of songs I think is gold. And I was like, I hear you. Let me go ahead and pull these 2 songs of mine off of here. Okay, now we've got the record. So we had like 17, 18 songs, and we cut it down to 15. And obviously, as I was just saying, I just done 3 solo records. I'm more than willing to write as many songs as the project calls for, and I don't care what happens. Like I could write 15, 20 songs and you can cut it down to 8. My only question is like, what 8 songs are we talking about? Because I need to go rehearse.
Right, so people can pre-order so the
Yes.
new album at thepinx.bandcamp.com/album/the-pinx.
Yeah,
Right?
and they could just do thepinx.bandcamp.com. It will default to the new record anyway. You can pre-order a CD, you can pre-order the download. I think you can pre-save on Spotify at this point. I might be wrong, but I think so.
Now, pre-ordering has always confused me because I thought, well, how's that different from just ordering? The pre-orders are kind of the same as an order, really.
Right.
You're just not getting it yet. So
right. So I think it's so that people, not me, will have some idea of how many units we're about to move.
got it. Yeah, well, I guess that makes sense then. Now you're going to be playing at Grant's Lounge on the release date, so that's 19th of August, and
Yes.
that's in a place called Macon, I want to say.
Macon, Georgia.
Macon, Georgia. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the day after at the Earl in Atlanta.
Yes.
So on the 20th, right? Do you have other shows planned? Is there going to be a tour around the new album?
Yeah, there's going to be a tour in September. You're going to have to stay tuned for that. Like we haven't announced the dates yet, and it's really
Okay.
another band's tour, and we're hopping on. And we hope that after that tour, I mean, we'll be going up to New York and coming back for that tour, and we're really hoping to keep it going after that. If we can get some momentum going for the new record, you know, like
Yeah.
there may be the demand to go back out and do some more shows, which is what I am gambling on. So I'd love to do that. I'd love to come over to England
Well,
before
that
the
was going to be my next question. I mean, do you have any plans for foreign shows?
we would love to come over to England to do some shows. I came over with my other band Stone Rider 10 years ago, and I've been fighting to get the Pinx back ever since. We had a great time in England, a huge
Where did you
response.
visit?
What was
Where were
that?
you? Where did you visit when you were in England? Where did you play?
I think we did about 10 shows. We started off at the Garage in London
Oh, I know the Garage. Yes.
and ended up at Shepherd's Bush O2 in London. And in between, we kind of did a tour of all of the O2 venues around the country. I think we played, what was the name of that venue? Rock City. Um,
Nottingham. In
yeah,
Nottingham.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. You know, we played at the Coal Exchange in Wales, in Cardiff. That was wonderful. Um, uh, we played Glasgow. I mean, Newcastle. We had a great time all
Did
over
you
the.
play at the O2 Ritz in Manchester?
No, I don't think so.
That'll be one for your next tour then.
Right? Yeah, that would be lovely. Yeah, I really I've been to Manchester.
Bouncy dance floor. Well, quite a bit bouncy.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I used to club. I just used to go to a club like that. Personally, I never really noticed it was bouncy. People told me it was. I was bouncing around anyway, so I just didn't notice that. Never mind. So, what's next for you and the Pinx? So, what's next for you personally in your sort of solo career and as a band?
I'm making a sequel to Black Planet right now, so it's going to be another funk excursion, and it'll be weird and poppy. It'll be mixing a little bit more George Clinton in with the Prince influence, and the the Pinx are. I mean, the Pinx already have about 5 new songs since we did the record. So I have to stay active. Um, that's how I stave off my particular kind of depression. That if I stay creative, that's kind of what I'm focused on. And if I stop being creative, then I have all sorts of anxiety about, like what if the CDs don't come? What if the CDs don't show up on time, or if they're damaged? Like I have.
Oh, you know what can happen, which happened
Yeah,
to a band I know over here,
yeah.
is all the people that had ordered their CDs they arrived one day, but it wasn't their music. It was sitar music on it instead of rock. So that can
Oh
happen
my
as well.
gosh. Uh, back in the
Imagine it's
90s,
rare.
I ordered tapes back in the 90s, and some of the tapes were blank. So yeah, that's another thing for me to be well, I did check the CDs. It's us.
Right
At least
then,
it's
that's
us.
one less thing that can go wrong.
Right.
Not too bad.
Right. I'm always trying to predict what can go wrong, unless I'm being creative. If I'm being creative, then I don't have time to make these negative predictions. So I just have a good time creating and kind of communing with the universe. I really enjoy it, obviously, if I've made as many records as I have since the pandemic started.
You must have been going for a long time. I read that, over 20 years. Is that the Pinks or is that as a musician?
Um my first gig on stage was like in 1987. playing with Bobby Moore and the Rhythm Aces. I think the
Good year for
Pinx.
music, 87, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
The releases that year.
Yeah, well, I was a kid, I was sitting in with
So was I.
a soul and R&B band that night. But the Pinx have been going since our first record was 2009.
Okay.
So if you want to start from there, that's kind of when we got serious about hitting it. So the Pinx have been going since 2009.
13
So
years.
yeah, I was going to say, what's the math on that?
Yeah. Is there anything else you would like to add that I've not touched on? Anything you want people to know?
I think that if I have any message at all, it's not that it's not for people to look at how much I've created like I'm trying to show off or something. Like, that really is my therapy. And that if you're sitting there going, gosh, I wish I could, I wish I could record an album, or I wish I could draw or do a painting, or I wish I could get back to my hobby, it doesn't matter whether or not it's good. It really doesn't. Sometimes if I'm stuck for writing a song, I'll write the dumbest thing I possibly can to make myself laugh. I'll do a terrible drawing and just sit back and laugh at it. And by the time I'm finished doing whatever silly thing it is to get going again, I have 2 or 3 more ideas. So you kind of, if you're sitting there waiting for permission to do something creative, just get on it. It's fun. It's fun to create. It might make you feel better. And that's part of my purpose here, is to remind people that it's good to create stuff. It doesn't matter what happens to it after you've made it and after it comes out. The point is
therapeutic, isn't it? You've got to, at the end of the day, you've got to do it for yourself.
Right. I try to remember that I'm doing it for myself.
Yeah.
When I get down about things is when I forget that.
Yeah. And last thing I want to ask you, are you allowed to tell us yet which band you're going to be touring with in September? I know you didn't mention it, and I wanted to
I'm not now, because
and you weren't allowed to.
Yeah, the tour is not announced yet, but I'll let y'all know as soon as I can.
No exclusive for me today, then. I'm used to that. Don't worry, I won't take it personally. But everyone, check out these guys. If you love your straight up rock and roll, that's what the Pinx are, and it's fantastic. It's music for the soul. I think it's just wonderful. So I hope you get over here, and let me know if you do, and I'll make some calls to the O2 Ritz, the one near me, and make sure you get in there.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be very easy to get back into the O2. All right, thank you very much, Anne. I really appreciate your kind words.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for putting up with my Zoom issues.
No problem.
And and say hello to those lovely dogs of yours for me, because I'm a big dog person. I just love them. So, anyway, lovely talking to you, and take care. All the best.
Bye.
This is rock and roll, burning out to my soul. This is rock and roll.